everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm looking at Urban Decay's All Nighter Concealer. I'm also going to be comparing it with Tarte Shape Tape. Not only am I looking at this concealer for dark circles, I'm looking at this concealer for mature skin with dark circles. Specifically for skin with texture and dark circles, because you can have texture under your eyes whether you're 20 or 60. And that's a whole different ballgame than just having dark circles. You can slap a whole triangle of concealer under your eyes if you have a smooth surface and dark circles. It's a lot easier to deal with than if you have some texture going on under your eyes. I like Tarte Shape Tape. I know some people find it drying. Many months ago, I did a video on how to apply Tarte Shape Tape if you're not a YouTuber. A lot of people have found that video extremely helpful if they had issues applying Tarte Shape Tape. I'm so particular with my concealers because of my under eye situation that if I can apply Tarte Shape Tape, anybody can. Now, there may be some specific circumstances where you just can't, but I just feel like it has helped a lot of people. I find hydrating extremely well and dotting it on versus slathering it on the way you see so many tutorials doing is key. Whether you set or not is going to be personal preference. Some people like myself have to set no matter what because you do get some creases underneath your eyes. That's just me. A lot of you have been asking me about this concealer. I did buy it the day it launched. I intended on having a very quick turnaround. I don't like doing first impressions. I really did want to give it a couple days at least of trying it out, but I had a small hiccup, which is why it's just now coming out. Before I get into it, I'm gonna read you a little bit about the concealer with the cost and all that. So let's do that first, and then I will tell you about my experience I've had with this concealer and the comparison and all that good stuff. It's a long description, so I'm gonna read and summarize it as best as I can. I've already done, like I said, a whole video on Tarte Shape Tape, and I've done a huge video on comparing 14 different concealers on my under eye circles. I'm gonna link all that below and I'll put it in cards because the specifics of Tarte Shape Tape are gonna be in that video, but really Tarte Shape Tape, it's a full coverage concealer and it wears a long time. So it says that it's a full coverage concealer. It provides flawless matte coverage that lasts all day and night. Get a perfectly blown out effect. It's blendable, controls shine, and masks imperfections for 24 hours. I don't know who needs 24-hour concealer coverage, but hey, you might. It has a modern matte finish that never looks overdone. Just like the All Nighter foundation, it covers everything and lasts through whatever trouble you might find. It hides even the most hard to cover spots and sins from the night before. Okay, all right, I'm getting the 24-hour thing. It is a waterproof formula that stays put in the morning light, whether you're on the dance floor, in a sweaty nightclub, in a hot and heavy situation. It hides dark circles, blemishes, and discoloration, and it even covers tattoos. There are meticulously calibrated shades that span the complexion spectrum from pale to deep, and it has every skin tone covered. I beg to differ on that, and we'll get into that in a minute. There's no need to build your coverage to apply multiple layers. Urban Decay All Nighter Concealer costs $29 for 0.12 ounces of product, and there are 14 shades. Tarte Shape Tape costs $27 for 0.33 ounces of product, and there are also 14 shades. I don't think you have to be a mathematician to figure out which one gives you more bang for your buck in terms of the amount you get in the tube. You get more than double the amount of product with Tarte Shape Tape than you do the All Nighter. So if you're wanting to save your money, you should definitely go for the Tarte Shape Tape. I'll just say that right off. That is a pro for Tarte Shape Tape. So the Urban Decay packaging is a smaller version of the All Nighter foundation packaging. It's really pretty, it's sleek, it's got a lot of detail on it. It doesn't necessarily feel heavier than the Tarte Shape Tape packaging. It's slimmer, it's a little bit smaller, obviously, because there's less product in it, but it is shinier and prettier. So if you're into packaging and things looking nicer and you want to pay more for it, then I would definitely lean towards the Urban Decay. And as far as the wand, it's a smaller wand. It's the typical concealer type of wand. You can definitely apply the concealer with the wand. I find with the Tarte Shape Tape, I do have to dot it onto my hand and then apply it with the brush. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. It does bother some people but it doesn't bother me. As far as shades go, there are 14 shades in both foundations, as I said before. Let's talk about shades for a minute. If you're familiar with my shades, I keep a foundation shade list on my blog. If you are not familiar with that, I am MAC NC25, and all the foundation shades that I've worn and tested are listed on my blog. I also have a concealer swatch blog post. I'm gonna link all this down below in my description box so that you can get to it, but it shows what shades I wear in Tarte Shape Tape and other various concealers, so you can get a good idea of what you might wear in the All Nighter or Tarte Shape Tape, but I'll go ahead and tell you. On my face in Tarte Shape Tape, I wear light medium. Under my eyes, I wear light medium honey. I prefer a peachier toned under eye concealer to counteract the dark circles. Even if I wear a corrector under them, I just find it works a little bit better. Some people do a more yellow toned concealer. I find that for me, that just tends to emphasize my circles more, and it looks more apparent when I blend it out with my foundation. I don't put foundation under my eyes. The less layers, the better. That's just a general rule, especially if you have texture under your eyes. So light medium honey is pretty much my ideal shade for my under eye area. It blends into my foundation beautifully. So I went to Ulta on the day of launch and I swatched Tarte Shape Tape in light medium honey on the back of my hand to get a point of reference so that I could try and get an all-nighter shade that was very similar. The one that was very similar was light neutral. So I got that shade, and then I came home and started my little experiment. I don't use the doe foot to apply the Tarte Shape Tape to my under eye area because it applies entirely too much. I dab it onto the back of my hand, and then I take a brush and dot it underneath my eye. So that's what I did with the Tarte Shape Tape. And then with the Urban Decay All Nighter, I used the doe foot. And I just applied it sparingly because they said you needed a very little amount, and I would definitely agree with that. What I noticed is how yellow it looked, kind of an orangey yellow, and it went darker. It was hard for me to get a grasp of how well it covered and worked because it just looked so yellow. So I went back to Ulta to see about getting the shade lighter, which is light warm. I remembered from the first day, the launch day, how much lighter that was, and that's why I didn't get it. It's light. I got it anyway, and I thought, well, if anything, I could mix the two. So I came home and I started wearing that a little bit over the next few days, experimenting. And you can see on the back of my hand the shade differences. You can see the light honey, and you can see it spread out. It doesn't oxidize or kind of blend it out. And then you can see the light neutral, how much darker it oxidizes to, and then how much lighter that light warm shade is. Then when I mix the two, it looks better, but I still had to add a little bit more of the light to make it closer to the Shape Tape when I actually used it. My ratio of the two is basically 1 swipe of the light neutral and 1.5 swipes of the light warm onto the back of my hand, and then I apply it with a brush. So I'm still applying it with a brush, just like the Shape Tape onto my under eye area. So if you're my shade in foundations and you wear my shade in concealers, there's not a shade for you in this concealer. It just goes from too dark and yellowy orange to too light. I'm having to mix, and that's what I had to do when Shape Tape first came out. There wasn't a shade because they came out with light medium honey later on. So maybe they're gonna do that, but they're also too yellow. I just find them very yellow. It's more apparent under my eyes. I feel like you can really see the concealer a lot more. Even though I'm using less, it just looks more made up, if that's the right term. Right after I apply them, they both do crease slightly directly under my eyes when I start to look down. Every concealer does that to me, so I do dust them or set them lightly with powder just to make sure they don't do that creasing thing during the day. It just helps me with any concealer that I apply underneath my eyes. But if you're someone that doesn't have to set your concealer, then you may not have to set these. They may set nicely if you apply them sparingly like I do. So yesterday was the last day when I officially tried these out before I decided I was gonna film this. And pretty much what I thought every day is what was verified to me yesterday when I asked Brooke. Brooke is my 12-year-old, if you're not familiar. I said that I was testing out 2 concealers under my eyes, 2 different concealers. Which one did she like better? And that's all I asked her. She said the one on my left showed a little bit more purple, but the one on my right looked more makeupy and cakey. I didn't use a corrector when I was testing these out, so I kept wearing them all day, and I got to the 11-hour mark and they both wore about the same, which is pretty good. I mean, they stay on the skin. They really do. Neither settles into my fine lines, and there are some fine lines there, but if you look really closely, the Urban Decay side looks a lot more dry and a lot more textured at the end of the day. And that is when, if you have texture under your eyes, that's when you really start seeing that texture. And I just can't handle that. I don't know about you, but that's I just can't do it. So what that tells me is that the Urban Decay may cover slightly better, but the trade-off is looking more dry and cakey and textured at the end of the day. And I can get that same level of coverage when I use Shape Tape with a corrector and not have it look as dry and textured at the end of the day. And I can have a better color match. I think if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of texture under your eyes, the Urban Decay may be a good option for you if you're just looking for a face concealer that's going to be budge proof, or an under eye concealer and you're not worried about hydration. But if you're someone who wants a full coverage under eye concealer and you are someone who hydrates well and you like Shape Tape, I would personally stick with the Shape Tape. That's just me. I like it. Sometimes I mix it with another concealer that's more hydrating if I'm feeling a little extra dry, but these are just not working for me and I really don't want to mix them. That's just me. So I am going to stick with my Shape Tape. That's just what I've experienced. Again, I'm dealing with a lot of texture. I tried it out over several days. I just don't like doing first impressions. I really wanted to give this a good shot because I thought that it might be kind of the same thing, different brand, but for me, it really did emphasize a lot of texture that at this stage of the game, I don't need that emphasized anymore than it already is. So I hope you found this helpful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're not following me on social media, I'll put that on the screen and down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.